Are the Oklahoma City Thunder the most underrated contender in recent NBA history? I mean, the bookmakers say that the Los Angeles Lakers, ranked 10th in the West, are more likely to win a ring at the end of the season than the Oklahoma City Thunder, who now have the second best record in the entire conference. That's despite the Lakers being a full 8 positions behind the Thunder in one of the most complicated conferences in a long time. And don't get me wrong, bookmakers don't usually make mistakes, otherwise they wouldn't make money. But the reality is that the experience factor, which is often overlooked, may be somewhat overvalued on this occasion. And in this upside-down world that's today's NBA, there's plenty of room for surprises. Make no mistake, the Thunder are one of the youngest teams in the league, specifically the third youngest team in the league, behind only the San Antonio Spurs and the Detroit Pistons. But they're also the team with the least amount of NBA experience, with only 2.4 years of experience on average per player. And that's exactly what's scary. Mark Daigneault's managed to create an elite offense, and at the same time a great defensive system, and this system is outperforming even the most optimistic early season predictions. Because realistically, while everyone expected Oklahoma to be in playoff contention, they didn't expect it like this. The Thunder have the third best point differential in the NBA, behind only the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers, in large part thanks to the third best offense in the league. And this situation has allowed them to rise to second in the NBA power rankings. There's something distinctive about this franchise today, an aspect that sets them apart from the rest of the more classic contenders, such as the Denver Nuggets, the Boston Celtics, the Milwaukee Bucks, or the Phoenix Suns. These teams, to a large extent, have managed to boost their starting lineups during the last summer at the expense of giving away bench pieces. The Bucks got Damian Lillard, the Suns got Bradley Beal, the Celtics got Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday, and the Nuggets simply paid the price for winning the championship, making their assets more attractive to other teams. And this is exactly the source of the problems these teams are having this season, all pointing to a lack of depth. The Thunder, on the other hand, do not have this problem. Of the current rotation of 10, perhaps 11 players that Daigneault is using assiduously, all of them are performing above the NBA average. The advanced win share statistic is usually quite reliable, and can be standardized for any player in the league, no matter how much he plays, with its win shares per 48 minutes variant. The NBA average always tends to hover around 0.1 WS per 48, and this has a logical explanation. Let's assume that only 10 players participate in a game, 5 from each team playing 48 minutes each. Those 10 players in total are going to generate 1 win share. Therefore, the average indicates that in the long run, each player should average 0.1 WS per 48 minutes. When a player averages higher in this metric, his impact on the game can be considered to be higher than the NBA average. And the reverse is also true. But if we count Oklahoma's actual rotation, all 10 players with the most minutes this season exceed 0.1 WS per 48, except one. And that player is Josh Giddey, who on top of that's a starter, or at least for the time being. All of this statistical conglomeration serves up to realize that the Thunder, despite having a very young team, are extremely deep. But if there is one thing the Thunder have that the classic contenders also have, it's the fact that they have a difference maker on their roster. Canadian Gilgeous-Alexander has been an absolute beast this season. The guard's averaging 31.2 points, 5.7 rebounds, and a career-high 6.3 assists per game, with a spectacular 55% shooting from the field. The last guard to do this? No one. Not even Michael Jordan's best seasons are this efficient, and MJ's the only guard in NBA history to come close to these records. To top it off, Shea's leading the NBA's in steals by a wide margin, and his defensive performance, at least statistically, has doubled from last season. Since we've talked about win share per 48 previously, it's worth saying that according to this statistic, SGA has 3 times more impact in a game than the average NBA player. To be honest, and despite the fact that he's currently 4th in the official MVP ladder, Shea's making a strong case for best player in the entire league. You heard right. His season's on par with the likes of Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, or Giannis Antetokounmpo. Even so, the Canadians' last season already foreshadowed that this jump could happen during this season. But what not so many people expected is that his new teammate, Chet Holmgren, would be ready to offer the performance he's offering in his rookie year. After missing all of last year due to injury, the Rookie of the Year candidate is making things extremely difficult for Victor Wembanyama in one of the toughest races for the award in recent memory. Holmgren's averaging 17.7 points, 7.8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 2.7 blocks per game with 54% shooting from the field, and a spectacular 40% in three-pointers. And all this in just 30 minutes of play per night. A center capable of everything on the court with an enormous defensive instinct that serves to lock down the paint, and with offensive capabilities that continue to surprise all NBA scouts. Jalen Williams has become one of the best two-way players in the league. The forward's become the third most important piece of the Thunder, and has managed to establish his importance in the franchise by increasing his offensive responsibilities. Another player who's shooting over 40% in three-pointers, but whose contribution on offense goes far beyond that. Jalen's averaging 18 points per game with excellent efficiency, and has also emerged as a very good passer, an aspect that allows Shai to assume a role more similar to that of a pure scorer. Three-quarters of the same in the case of Lou Dort, who, besides being an elite defender, has managed to improve his shooting to the point of shooting 43% from the three-point line this season, and being the second highest scorer from long range of the whole team, only behind Isaiah Joe, who, by the way, is still one of the most efficient shooters in the league for the second year in a row. Sam Presti's done it again. The GM who built one of the most talented teams in basketball history has once again put together a unique and unrepeatable core. The franchise is in a nearly perfect situation, both in terms of salary and draft capital, and the scariest part is that it's an unfinished team. The payroll of the Oklahoma City Thunder will not only allow them to have $27 million available for the next free agency to attract some of the best players on the market, but that figure can grow to a maximum salary if the legendary GM pulls off one of his spectacular trades that we're already used to witnessing. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, or Pascal Siakam are examples of players who will finish their contracts next season and could serve to put the icing on the cake of one of the most ambitious projects in the NBA. And if that were difficult, Presti has plenty of assets to balance the scales, not only to generate enough salary margin to offer a salary to these players, but to get them outright in a trade. The Thunder own 32 draft picks through 2029. 32! Not only do they have some of the league's most prized assets in overperforming young players who are playing much better than expected, but they have the picks of every damn team. And really, there's virtually no player that has enough value for their GM to turn down a succulent offer from OKC. This situation is unique. In fact, it could be considered unfair. One way or another, it seems like the Thunder are playing 2K My GM mode at the easy level. The best teams in the NBA are going to have to compete with a team that has every aspect needed to establish a dynasty that could dominate modern basketball. Well, all of them, except one. Because as many assets as the Thunder have, let's not forget that they come from a small market. If the team's current situation were the current situation of a big market franchise like the Los Angeles Lakers, New York Knicks, or Boston Celtics, we'd be hearing about it everywhere. Thousands of media outlets would cover the reality of a project that doesn't seem to have any weaknesses, and that has the tools to sustain itself for a long, long time. And while most of the players on the roster may not have a lot of experience, their GM certainly does. The contract situation the Thunder found themselves in 2012 still haunts a fan base that came close to glory, but fell short even with some of the best players of their generation. A decline that began with the departure of James Harden to Houston in a decision that changed the NBA forever. A mistake that never had to happen.
But I will say this, James Harden is the greatest scorer in the game today.
They say that man is the only animal that stumbles over the same stone twice. But if anyone can avoid it, we're talking about a genius. A genius like Sam Presti.